And in these majalis, a lot of miracles happen as well, all around the world. Certain things happen that no one can explain. And I brought one short story to talk about, inshallah, so we can see just one example. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there was a youth, and he had severe eye problems. He had some eye injury. He was born with it, and he continued. He had the eye trouble since he was 6 years old. He had eye trouble, and it continued on. And it started. He just was having eye problems, and then it continued on until eventually he went completely blind. So during the first 10 days of Muharram, his uncle held a Majlis to commemorate the tragedy of Imam Hussein. And since it was the summertime, they had a lot of cold drinks that they wanted to hand out for the people who came to attend the Majalis as 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪, to give to the guests the cold drinks. So the man asked his uncle, the blind man, he's older now, he asked his uncle, he said, "Let me serve the guests. I want to be the one to give the guests the refreshment." But his uncle, he pointed out, he said, "How are you going to do that? Because you've lost your eyesight completely. You're completely blind. How can you give the refreshments out?" So he said, don't please just let me do it. Just give me an aid, and I'll bring an aid to help me. So he agreed to it, and he gave him the aid. He started passing out the drinks to all of the people who attended the Majalis. And while he's serving the drinks, the speaker, he started reciting the musibah of Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this blind man, he's handing out the drinks, and he's starting to hear the musibah of Sayyida Zainab. And he's so affected by the tragedy of Sayyida Zainab and what's going on, what he's hearing, he fell almost unconscious, and he started crying and just crying uncontrollably for Sayyida Zainab. And he said while he was in this condition, there was a lady that came and passed her hands over his eyes and said, "From now on you're fine, you don't have any more eye trouble." And he said after that, he couldn't believe it, and he opened his eyes and he saw everything clear. And he looked around the Majlis, and he went running to his uncle. And the whole Majlis just got up, and it was a big disturbance. They couldn't believe what just happened. And it was because, these things that he did and he wanted to serve 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗧 alayhi salam. So just this small thing of handing out a refreshing drink, a cup of water or lemonade or whatever the drink was, just for this he got his eyesight back. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I got this story, I saw it was in a book called Amazing Stories, and there's many other stories in that book. It's by 𝗙𝗢𝗧𝗏𝗡𝗙𝗍𝗏 It's a very good book. I recommend people to read it if you can. I had this story as well, but the story didn't end here. He got his eyesight back, and then later on, he became a scientist. He studied and became a scientist. So he's working on an experiment, and he said he didn't realize that the vessel or whatever the container beside him, he's working on an experiment here, and this thing, he didn't know what was in it, and it had something flammable in it. So this thing exploded, and it caught him on fire, and it burned him, all over, from the head to toe. And he was in the hospital for several months from this. Later on in life, he was all burnt. And the doctors, they came in and they said, we're so surprised that we have to ask you, why, how come you're burnt everywhere, but your eyes aren't affected at all? Your eyes are fine. Nothing with your eyes, there's no problem. But everything else, your face, your head, the rest of your body is all burnt but your eyes. And he replied that this is a gift from Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and a promise that as long as I live, my eyes will never be in pain. Allahumma salli ala